Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sabine from zennumerostar.com. Today's video is on the emotional purge, which is inspired by one of the comments that I saw on another channel. Throughout this week, I've done an exercise that I rarely do. I spent some time looking at other channels to understand what type of videos you would like to watch, and I have also answered some questions. And when this topic came up, I was quite happy. So I took immediately the opportunity to talk about it, because when you inquire about an emotional purge, it is because you are wanting to shift and manifest from a place of power, which is great. Now, there are two types of purges. You have the mental purge, which is called the mental diet in the manifesting community. And you also have the emotional purge, which corresponds to how you leave overwhelming emotions behind. If you remember well, I talked about the bag of emotions the last time I talked about the emotional purge, and I will link the video in here. The original video will be at the end of this one. Anyway, since there are still some questions around the emotional purge, let's talk about that again. In my latest blog post, because you know that I also have a website called zennumerostar.com. You have all the links in the description box below. I am approaching the subject in a slightly different way. So I can only encourage you to also have a look there. I posted it yesterday already. You also have 5 signs showing you that you are shifting through an emotional purge. So, what is an emotional purge, and is it necessary? Well, not everybody will go through an emotional purge in order to manifest, but all the manifestors who have awakened to the law of assumption will likely go through one at some stage, because let's face it, if you're looking for information on manifesting and you have understood that an emotional purge will help you on your journey, it is because there are currently unpleasant circumstances in your reality or past circumstances that still impact you. The ones who don't go through an emotional purge is because they don't know that they can do it to manifest from a place of power, or those who are happy enough with their current situation, in which case either their beliefs are more or less supportive already, or they don't want to change in case what they find after is not what they wanted. I know of a person, for instance, living close to me here, and despite her unfavorable circumstances, she doesn't want to shake the boat, so to speak, and that's okay too. I mean, this is her decision to make. In other words, you cannot make someone transform their lives only because you know they can. Because in any case, their reluctance to change will be more solid than your willingness to help. And although this is frustrating at times, I always let people make their own decisions. I am saying this to you because you need to be mentally prepared before performing a purge. For instance, you need to understand that your negative patterns will resurface in order for you to purge them and to break the toxic patterns and so on. So now let's see what a purge may be, why it's maybe emotional. Okay, so your overwhelming emotions correspond to emotional wounds that still affect you, because maybe you first had to deal with them at an age where your brain couldn't comprehend how to handle them, or because you have negative patterns that you haven't broken yet, or because you are facing a new challenge and a surge of emotions are starting to overwhelm you. Whatever the case may be, they are not negative as such. They are indeed part of you being a human being and expressing the way you feel when you experience something negative or something unpleasant, or even think of certain unpleasant situations. And I could see that when I was working on hypnosis during my studies on hypnotherapy. However, The risk that you take if you don't deal with them is that they can hinder your manifestation, and also they will reappear later on in your life. Simply said, if you select your preferred reality, affirm what you want, are working on your self-concept, or even are working on a self-diet, dealing with those emotions is really important. You see, they will not disappear if you try to ignore them or suppress them. Again, they will only withdraw, but when they come back, oh my God, it will be with more intensity. You certainly don't want that to happen. One thing I also want to be clear about is that even as you do an emotional purge now, you will always experience them from time to time, but with far less intensity. I'm referring to the emotions, not to an emotional purge. I mean, once you've done an emotional purge once, that's it. But the emotions, unsupportive or negative or tearful emotions, will still be there somehow, because this is part of you being a human being. And also you might still have some traumatic experiences, like the death of a loved one and so on. So I mean, it's not a miracle per se, but it is a step in the right direction for you to manifest from a place of power. Also, the purge will help you because you will avoid taking those emotions on board that are attached to specific circumstances in your new reality. The reality that you have chosen for yourself with a new version of a specific person or a new one, that promotion you are after, and so on and so forth. This is a type of emotional purge I am talking about. If you remember well, the type of emotional baggage I'm referring to is where you are exhausted and feel emotional when something reminds you of the time when you are doing something with your SP and now you can't get that sadness out of your system, for instance. In my last video, I was referring to it as the emotional baggage. So the bag where you have all the emotions, some are good and supportive and others need to be dealt with. Okay, so here is what you need to do the emotional purge. You'll see it's quite simple, but there is one trick that will make a huge difference. So here we go. Step number 1. Look within and identify the way the situation you dislike makes you feel. Step number 2. Name that feeling. By naming it, you are accepting it and you are facing it. You are acknowledging its presence. Step number 3. Consider each emotion as if it was a child. Basically, those emotions are emotional wounds corresponding to emotional fears. The fear of rejection, of abandonment, and so on. Those wounds in psychology are commonly called your inner child. Step number 4. Now that you have identified what is upsetting your inner child, talk to each emotion and let it express itself. Step number 5. Before crying or screaming or whatever way you want to express your emotions, some of you may find it difficult to just start crying or screaming or stomping on the floor or whatever you want to do. Remember something that has affected you until you get that emotion again. But then, please pay attention to what I'm going to say now. Do not cry on or over your situation or scream at your situation. No. That would be you solidifying a negative type of emotion attached to the situation that you want to move away from, which would only keep the situation going. I know, paradoxically speaking, it's a bit strange, but that's the way it is. So obviously, you do not want that to happen. So, as soon as you feel emotional, stay only with the emotion itself by talking to it, by letting it express itself. Be understanding and compassionate with yourself. Once you're done and you feel better, thank the emotion and thank yourself for that good work, and decide to focus back on what you want if you feel like doing it. Now, this is not a quick fix and it doesn't happen overnight. Well, for some of you it might, but for some others it could take a bit of time. For me, for instance, it took me a few good days and I was feeling on and off and everything. Well, anyway, all the signs are in my blog post. But for those of you who've been emotional for a few days or a few weeks already, and you are wondering when you're going to get out of this cycle, please double check if you have been doing the purge correctly, meaning if you have nurtured the emotions instead of crying over your situation, because if that is the case, you haven't purged yet. It is the emotions that you need to heal, not the situation. Again, the situation will change by itself as you focus back on what you want, so don't bother analyzing why you don't see a change right this instant. Your situation will change anyway by universal law. Now remember that in my self-concept course I do expand on shifting through a mental and emotional purge, and I also explain how to manifest another reality for yourself. So you know it's there and the price is affordable. So by any means, if you want to have a look at it, you are welcome to do so. As always, I do believe in you. I know you can do it. And on that note, happy manifesting.